Hi, this is International Master David Pruess for Chess.com, and today we are going to learn how to use the queen. I will not only be teaching you the rules for how she moves, that will take our first 30 seconds or so, but I will be teaching you how to actually use her in your game, some basic strategy or placement guidelines for how to use the queen effectively in chess. So first of all, let's see how she moves. She moves in straight lines, either sideways, up and down, or on diagonals. And as you can see from the length of these arrows I'm drawing, she is allowed to move as far as she likes along any one of these lines, as long as she does not bump into a pawn or any other piece. She cannot go past it. She could go there and capture it if it's the opponent's piece, or if it were her own piece, she can go up to the square before her own piece. So in this position, her movement possibilities would now look like this. Clear? So like every piece other than the knight, she can't hop over pieces. When she moves onto the square another piece is on of the opponent's, she captures it, and she can't move onto squares occupied by her own pieces. She can move, as you see, like if she's moving on this diagonal here, she can move to any of these four squares. So she can move 4 spaces, or she can choose to move only 1 space. Since she moves both straight and diagonally, she's like a rook and a bishop, right? The rook moves side to side, up and down. The bishop moves along the diagonals. So her move is the combination of those two pieces moves. Okay, let us talk about what the queen's general strengths are. One of her abilities is speed. She's one of the fastest pieces on the board. Since she can move as many squares as she wants to, she moves as fast as the rook or the bishop. Because she can switch between moving like a rook or a bishop, it's harder for her to get blocked. Rooks and bishops will often get blocked. Like, for example, here you see the white rook is kind of blocked in. If the queen chose to move like a rook, she would be blocked in. But she could move like a bishop to get out, right? And then she can start moving like a rook if she wants to. The queen's second advantage is double attacks. She's actually one of the best pieces. No, she is the best piece for giving double attacks or forks, especially on open boards where there are lots of open lines for bishops or rooks, right? She will be able to attack 2 things very often. For example, here, the best move for white is actually to move the queen backwards, showing the power she can have from a distance. She doesn't need to be out in the thick of things like on one of those squares in order to deliver some serious threats. Here she attacks the rook, she attacks the knight, and white actually picks up material in this position just with that simple retreating move with the queen. And double attacks are a very common forte of the queen's, something to be looking out for when you're playing with or against her. She is also very good at checkmates because she covers a ton of squares in a narrow area, as well as being able to move a long distance, right? If you look how many spaces she covers in a small space, right? She covers almost enough squares to checkmate a king by herself. In fact, she only needs 1 helper to cover 1 square, and she's able to deliver checkmate, as in this position here, where she comes in and the pawn defends the queen, but the queen takes away every single other possible square, and that's a checkmate. So the queen is very good at giving checkmates. And often when you're attacking, if you can get your queen into the vicinity of the opponent's king, that's going to be the final moment in the attack and is going to lead to a checkmate. Now, because the queen is really valuable, you often don't want to put her in front of your other pieces, because that is where pieces get captured and trades are made, and the queen doesn't want to be traded for any of the opponent's pieces typically, right? So what kind of a position do we normally put the queen in early in a game when we don't yet have double attacks or things to attack or a force around the opponent's king and you want to swoop in and checkmate? The answer is the queen usually takes a position which is kind of like a quarterback position. What she likes to be is somewhere in the middle of her own side's position where she can swing to one side or another to join whatever attack or battle starts up. She's the fastest at getting from one area to the next, so she doesn't need to be really close to participate in the battle, and you can bring her into what you want very soon. So this square here, for example, that she's on is already a very good square for her, as we saw in the first example where I was showing you a double attack. But here she blocks her own rook's coordination, so what you'll most often see the queen on is one of these kind of squares here. She just lifts up onto the second rank, could be any of those three squares. Now your rooks are free to move around. Your queen can move on the second rank. She can also pretty quickly support actions on various diagonals, right? And which diagonal you think you're more likely to use is how you choose whether or not to back up this bishop or to, stay over here, back up this bishop and have this option, etc. But these kind of quarterback positions are typically where you're placing your queen early in the game, so that as things develop, she can then swoop out and join the attack in a decisive way. And now let me give you a note on where to place your queen in the endgame as well. Queen endgames are extremely complicated and difficult to play, but one single rule of thumb about them is that your queen is best placed in a certain area of the board. Do you think it is the corner, the side, the center, or along the alleys? Or is it near her own king? Or is it near any passed pawns? Is it far away from the kings? The answer is, generally speaking, the center. The queen will be best in the center because she actually has more moves in the center than on the side or in the corners. Now, as you may know, rooks always have 14 moves, but bishops have more moves if they're in the center on longer diagonals. And since the queen is partly a bishop, like a bishop, she has slightly more moves here, usually, than she had when she was over here. Okay, so typically you want to place her in the center, and the reason it's really good for her to cover lots of squares is that that's going to help prevent your opponent from giving perpetual check by checking your king forever. Your queen is going to cover a lot of squares, and that is going to help you to somehow get your king out of check and hide him in the middle of the board. That's right. So that is how you want to place your queen in chess. Enjoy using the most powerful piece on the board. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you around on Chess.com.